Call the meeting to order.
A pizza.
Yeah, let's call it.
I thought you said to order. Sorry. I
Yeah.
misunderstood.
All right. We were going to. The first order of business is to review the agenda. There was a suggestion that we move a couple of agenda items up because Chief Scott has several presentations to give that might take a while. So we were. So the motion would be to move the public comment and the presentation by Ms. Carter up before Chief Scott's comments. So I guess we would do public comment first. Is that the idea?
Yeah, after the minutes have been reviewed and approved,
Okay.
would be public comment, because we didn't have members of the public available at this time, and then Ms. Carter, and then Chief Scott, and then the Chief Inspector.
Okay, so motion is to move public comment immediately after the minutes, and then Ms. Carter's presentation immediately after that.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
So can,
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
discussion? Yeah, go
no,
ahead.
I don't need discussion on that, I just have something else. on
Okay,
the agenda.
all in favor, everybody? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll do that.
I said one thing.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Norb.
Yay!
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, we have a new member,
Yay,
Norm.
Norm.
So last month, the Police Advisory Council member was near the top. And I thought, good, must be because we have a new chair. Why is it down at the bottom now? So that when there's questions, people want to go home and it's hurried along?
Well, we had specific comments on the agenda, like sort of agendized that time. That was why we moved it up. We can move that up. We can move that up higher too. That's
Yeah, I
fine.
don't think we should be able to be, I don't think we should have to be at the end. Or
Yeah, we
I
can
could
do
just keep asking questions as we go along.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we can routinely move that. I have no objection to moving that up higher in the agenda in general.
If I may say, there's a reason why the members are always commenting through the whole meeting, asking questions, and at the end, it was kind of the way we've traditionally done it, as a recap. Hey, is there anything we left out that's not on the agenda that a member wants to comment on? And it's usually a recap of what we're going to moving forward. So
Okay,
that's
so
why we wanted
as
like
long
everyone to
as
have
people
fun.
don't roll their eyes when I ask questions, I have some
You ask good
now and I
questions.
can wait.
You ask good
But
questions.
I'm willing to wait until we get to the agenda item. I just don't want, what's happened is when it's really long, then people want to go home. And I actually had someone email me saying, have you ever seen a video of them rolling their eyes when you ask questions?
Well, that's not nice.
Yeah,
That isn't nice. I'm sorry.
so, yeah,
Okay.
I'll wait.
Okay, great. So we'll leave that where it is. Okay, so review of the minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll move approval as presented. Is there a second?
I wasn't here, so step back.
Second,
Any discussion
All in
on
favor?
it?
Discussion?
I have a couple of questions on it, but it's stuff that are in the comments. So Kali was questioned numbers of trespass after warning arrest, if any are homeless people. Chief Scott was going to come back, so I just want to remind that. And then if y'all could send out the schedule again of when we're supposed to go do the police presentation, that'd be great, so I don't have to go
Training?
through the emails.
Oh, the neighborhood policing initiative?
Yeah, and then we
yeah.
keep talking about going in the community
Mhm.
and doing the meeting. I would like to recommend Pine Ridge. There's been a lot of shootings there, and I've been organizing
Yeah.
them around housing issues for a couple of years. So it would take me going out and putting notices on all the doors to get anyone out. So I'd like to know when we could do that.
Is this related to the minutes per se, or is this a different item?
Well, they were talking about crime watch meetings.
Yeah.
Crime Watch meetings?
Right, yes. Yeah, so today we actually have a presentation from Ms. Carter, who's going to give present several opportunities for us to actually go out into the community and show up at some community meetings and hear feedback from community members. Maybe this is something that we can suggest as an addendum to her presentation at the end.
Okay, or I can ask at the bottom.
Yeah, that could
also.
work too, yeah,
I just-
maybe at the
They're
number
in a
comment.
crisis there.
Yeah, because
so-
we're still, I think we are still, we're going to get some opportunities tonight, and then hopefully we can generate some more, because I think we need more on the list. So yeah, absolutely,
Okay, cool, thank you.
yeah. Okay, okay, so it's been seconded. All in favor, approve the minutes?
Aye.
Aye, okay, great. Okay, so now we have public comment is the next agenda item. Yes, do we have any members of the public who would like to comment?
Hi, I'm Dave Wilson. Since many of you probably don't know me, I've been, on September 1st, I will have lived in Gainesville 50 years. I've lived in the University Park Neighborhood Association for the last 42 years, and I taught math at University of Florida, and I've always lived close enough to campus to bike. So my lasting contribution to the University of Florida is to have never purchased a parking decal.
Ooh, that is big.
That is big.
That's huge.
Friends of mine pay $500 for these things. So I'm here to talk about flash parties and noise and disturbances that are floundered out of control over the last, I'll say 5 to 7 years. Let me back up and give a little bit of history. There was a party on July 4th, 6, 7 years ago, where the party and the noise and the behavior was so bad, one of our neighbors spotted a kid lying on the ground across the street from him, and he went over and he poked the body, and there was no response, so he looked at the kids around, and he says, "You guys got two choices. Either you call 911 or I'm calling 911. The kids fled, okay? So I saw the ambulance. My neighbor called, the ambulance came, took the kid away, and the kids who were involved had a visqueen around the carport and had this contained party. And they ended up coming to my wife and bringing her an orchid to try to beg forgiveness because their professional careers were suddenly on the line with this thing. So one of the prime problems here, let me back up and give you what we've learned over the last 6 months, is the University of Florida. They're the gorilla in the room. And about 5, 6 years ago, they passed regulations on alcohol consumption on campus. And it's about 8 pages, and I can get it for you if you want. But it has all kinds of rules about where alcohol is permitted, what the rules are about kegs, about beer pong, all this stuff is in this document. And basically, while they're still drinking on campus, from what I understand, at the fraternities and sororities, it's basically pushed off campus. And so all this stuff is happening, and the way it's happening is there's a couple of kids who rent an apartment near us, just a block or two away, and the fraternity says, "Oh, let's have a party at your house." And then they organize this party, and it's supposed to be just for the fraternity. Well, someone puts it on social media or whatever, and suddenly you've got 150 kids showing up. And we had a big party last November that led to a conversation with Captain Finelli about the end of January this year. And he was terrific, and he laid out the rules. He educated us on permits for noise and all this stuff. And about, for example, you're not allowed to have speakers outside, stand-up speakers, and the great big boom boxes, which is what these parties have entailed. And so a week later, February 4th or 5th, we have a massive party behind 19th Street across from what is now CB Parker. A massive party. And, oh, and in this call, we also had not only Captain Finelli, but Lieutenant Scott Jr. Not, okay, and they were terrific. And we called the police, GPD, several times, and when they showed up, the second time, there were 5 police cars, and Lieutenant Scott was writing citations for these kids. What ended up was 3 of these kids were renting the house, but they also were subleasing to 3 other kids to get around the no more than 3 unrelated adults rule. And they came and groveled to my wife, also bringing her flowers and writing apology notes, and I even have the apology note here if anyone cared, about the gigantic nuisance that went on, totally out of control. And it's a situation where the kids were really abusive to me. I went over and I said, hey, you're not allowed to have these boom boxes out here. Well, didn't you party when you were a kid? I said, no, I've never been to a party like this in my life. I was in my office studying math, okay? And this has been going on. We just had another one on 8th Avenue at 1927. That got out of control. They had a water slide, outside boom boxes, the whole thing. And the neighbors over there, some of them are very intimidated by these crowds. And when I say intimidated, I mean they just won't call the police. They say, Dave, could you call the police? And I say, sure. I'll do it, whatever has to be done. And and on that one, I didn't feel as threatened on that one, but the Uber was driving off all these kids, and I say, you're going to a party. They have outside speakers. It's against the rule. We just talked to Captain Finelli about this, and they start F-bombing me, right? And I have photographs. I have, videos, all kinds of stuff on this. And I don't know. I don't have a plan. I would like to get a plan from this group or from GPD about how do we deal with these parties. And I watched your presentation, when was it? A month ago, approximately. And it's obviously worse in other areas. That downtown parking garage where one of the officers grabbed someone and a gun was sliding across the floor. And these things are really out of control. But this is our neighborhood issue, and I'm here to present concerns about it. And I would like to see some kind of coordination. I don't have any idea if you can in some way pressure University of Florida to somehow take control of what they say is no longer their responsibility. It's not their problem. The kids live off campus. The event took place off campus. It's not their problem. And I could go on with more details, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. But there's a consistent problem. Is that enough?
Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone have any comments or questions for?
Well, Dave,
Dr.
also, they are charging.
Oh, yeah,
You
that's the
forgot
other
to
thing.
say that.
I have photographs of pictures that for the day you can pay $50 and all you can drink, right down there on First Avenue. And another sign says $20, you can drink all afternoon. I think that was after the Alabama game. That was a little different. It's the same thing, setting up, and that's in the regulations, that's set up, that's setting up basically a business. And let me comment also that February 5th party, it was obvious underage drinking. And I suspect that's what some of the citations were for. You look at a kid and he looks like he's 15. I mean, and they all say, oh no, I'll show you my driver's license. And the other thing they always say is, we've got a permit. Well, that's just baloney. Permits do not allow outside boombox speakers that you can hear from 2, 3, 4 blocks away. So, anyway, I don't know. I know you're understaffed, terribly understaffed. Captain Finelli pointed that out to us on several occasions by 10% or 30, 35 people. And we're sort of last on the list, because at least no one's getting shot, like you were talking about shootings at other places. So that hasn't happened yet.
I have a question.
But thank you for.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
The things you mentioned, have there ever been any threats made against you at any time or from anybody?
It's kind of body language, kind of like, haven't you ever had fun in your youth when you were a college student? Didn't you go party, and they're leaning towards you, and there'll be 5 of them, and they'll say, what's your name? What's your name? So I've never been hit or kicked or anything like that, I will say that. And that's where it's not nearly as bad as some of the other things that are happening around town.
You also have a University of Florida resource. Her
Oh,
name is
thank you.
Nora Kilroy.
I've been on the phone with her constantly.
Okay. I would encourage you to go in and visit with her personally.
No, okay, let me give you, I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Because I've been in constant communication with her for the last 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
She is not a disciplinarian, she doesn't have a disciplinarian position.
Correct.
She can't say, you've been a bad kid, you're out of school. She can go to the fraternities and the sororities and say, hey, don't, behave yourself, be nice. And that's what it comes down to. And so and at the last party on April 21st, I told her, she said, Dave, you've got to get incidence numbers, you've got to get all these numbers and give them to me so I can go back and trace it and find out who did it. And then she went back and tried to find them, and she couldn't find the events that we were talking about. She couldn't trace even through the incident numbers, or got lost, or got confused. And so it's been very, very frustrating for our neighborhood.
I live in that neighborhood. It's my friend and neighbor, Dave, and we have Frank here. What the question is, we coordinate with the university, and that's being done, and there's a certain level of cooperation. But the question here is, what does the neighborhood want from GPD? And what we want is more reports. And this is one of the reasons I suggested that the neighborhood come here to discuss this. We need incident numbers. We need it written up. We need citations issued when it's repeated violations. We need a record. If we have, the neighborhood has that record, then we can bring that to Nora Kilroy, bring it to the fraternity council. There's other places we can bring it. We can even bring it, and one place that would be effective is we know which fraternities are doing it. They don't want to get thrown off campus, so you drink off campus, because then you don't get thrown off campus. So one way around that is called the National Fraternity. They take that seriously, but what we're looking for from GPD is the officers to be more inclined to write it up, because we're missing the paper trail. And I understand that, our thorn in our side is over drinking. Thorn in other side is a crack house with shootings. It's not comparable, but nevertheless, to help our neighborhood out, that's what we need. Unfortunately, the bigger problems that sometimes are elsewhere, we're not ducking bullets.
Not yet. My daughter was in another neighborhood.
Okay.
Before moving on, it looks like Chief Scott
Chief,
wants to make a
oh,
quick
I'm
comment.
sorry.
Are you allowed to do that?
Please.
Yeah, it's true, we're limited by staff, but that doesn't mean that we can't respond and we can't do something. So I'll have Captain Finelli set up a meeting, and a meeting with me, him, and a couple other folks, and we'll come up with a game plan. And that's our job, to sit down, identify a problem, come up with an action plan. We'll give the community some roles to play, and we'll have our roles to play. It may be as simple as you calling us and telling us what's the best date and times, but we can do something about this, and we may end up having to employ some overtime to get it going. I think the best time for us to do that is before classes start again in the fall. And so we will also have, we'll work with the university, we'll get with UPD, we'll talk with them. I think I talked with Charlie Davis maybe once every 2 months. Lane, I'm sorry, Charlie Lane. Once every 2 months, we get together and have a conversation about the progress, he and Chief Stump. We talk about what we're going to do, how we're going to do things. So that'll be a conversation that we'll have, and we'll come up with an action plan and get the university to partner with us and try to address those issues. So we'll put something together. I can't tell you that I'm going to be able to put all my staff or resolve these problems easily, but I will tell you that we will address it. We'll be out there and we'll be doing it in concert with you and make sure that we get good communications with you. So if you feel like you have to come here, I'll give you my cards. Anytime you have issues like this, just bring them to me. You know, we'll work it out and put something together. So
Who owns the house? Is it,
We have a list of the houses where it's repeat offenders.
okay.
and that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, I was gonna say, codes may provide an
See,
avenue.
the thing that we talked about this at the city commission meeting, one of the things that we started to do, and we haven't really been doing it, is we cite the people that are there, and then we cite the owners.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was
Okay,
headed.
now, the first time we hit the owners, it's $250 plus a $21 processing fee. The second time we hit the owner is $521. The third time, it's a mandatory court appearance. And then the fourth time, if we can lay hands on them, it's a physical arrest.
And citing them for what, Chief?
Noise violations.
Oh, it's fine, okay.
Yeah.
If you're the
So
owner.
it's a progressive schedule. It's intended to evoke cooperation. You know, we do it gently initially. First time we go, there's a warning. The second time, you know, it's going to cost you. So we'll have to make an example of one or two people, and then maybe we'll get that cooperation. But we'll come up with something. You know, come up with something. And if we have to go arrest the president of the fraternity, then maybe that'll help out too. So we'll do something. We'll talk with them and try to convince them to cooperate and be good neighbors. You know, we're one community. Let's try to work together with one another. So we'll do that.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have another
Can I ask
comment?
a question? No, just wanted to ask.
Quick.
When you say, you talk about citing them for $250, do you mean the landowner or the kids?
Oh. Whoever's making the noise, you know, whoever's there and responsible for that noise being generated, they get cited, and we cite the owner.
Okay.
And the owner.
Okay? And it's just for these type of situations, so that, you know, what happens, is the owner may rent it out to different people, so we hit that person one time, and they go, hey, I want the person here. No, it doesn't matter. You know, we did here, the owner is the person responsible for allowing that to happen, so we'll get to that. Okay?
Fantastic. Thank you, Chief. Do we have any other public comments? Any other comments from the public? Okay, moving down the agenda, I think we have Yvette Carter next, presenting some opportunities for community engagement for the Police Advisory Council.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Police Council. Yvette Carter. I am in the Office of Governmental Affairs and Community Relations for the entire city. Many of you may know me from GRU. Contrary to popular belief, I still work at GRU, but I also work out of City Hall. So it is my pleasure to be here this evening, and I hope I can do this without my second set of eyes. If not, I might have to pause and get my glasses. But to talk about opportunities for community engagement or outreach that I believe, after talking with the chair, Mr. Purvis, that could happen that the police council could just really latch on or join in with some things that we already have going. Under the advent of the expansion of the office over to what we call general government, but that's the departments outside of GRU, interim city manager Curry really did challenge us to do more opportunities for community engagement in ways that would be inviting for the community. So I'm going to talk about three specific items that I think are projects or programs that I think really would work for having your council join in and be a part. The first is Community First, and the first is an acronym, facilitate, innovate, restorative, supportive, and timely. Community First. And really that program is where the city manager will identify one of her direct reports, one of her directors, to be almost like a hub manager or like a community city manager for a particular area. We've already kicked off in the Porters neighborhood, and our fire chief, Chief Dixon, is working in that area. And really what we do is go into that neighborhood, identify issues and things that we see. We also work with the community, find out what issues they see. We come together with a game plan, go out in timely meetings that could be over and above their neighborhood watch meetings. If they have a neighborhood association, we can attend those meetings. We can set up separate meetings with them, but we meet with them on a regular basis, that community, that neighborhood on a regular basis, and really talk through our game plan, what we've come up with, what they've come up with, things that we can do, low-hanging fruit. We set up sort of like a strategic plan, but really just a game plan of how we're going to address the issues that we see in the community. And not only that, how do we help them uplift their community and empower them to not only know more about how to operate within the city government, but really how to make things happen for their neighborhood through their own resources. So that being said, Portis is the first neighborhood that we've done, and we're still working there. We're also beginning to work in the Sugar Hill neighborhood, and Chief Scott is going to be the hub manager for Spring Tree Hazel Heights. So I know that his team is working on a plan for that neighborhood as well. So we asked each one of our sitting commissioners to choose a neighborhood. And so we have those on the list right now, but there are other neighborhoods that, that will be happening. One of the ones on the list is Pine Ridge. And Chief Tony Jones is going to be the hub manager for that neighborhood, and I know he's beginning to work out the plans now. So one of the opportunities that I believe would be great for combined engagement would be to work through the Community First program, and at one of the meetings, it could be one of the early on meetings, have the police the Police Advisory Council attend and present at that meeting. So that is number one. I'm interactive. I'm from the country, and we talk to each other in the woods. So I'm going to pause with your permission, Chair, and if there are any questions on that one, then I'll go that way. May I
Please, yeah. Any questions or comments?
So you're saying the fire chief is now the
hub
commissar.
manager.
Oh, hub manager.
Yeah, we call him all kinds of things, but in this instance, we call him the hub manager.
Okay, for Porters.
For Porters.
And is his HQ right there in the new fire station on Main Street?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. No. Thank you.
We think sometimes. I think the chair has to recognize.
Bob, go ahead.
Okay, can you tell me a little more, what's a hub manager do?
So they really are the leaders or the go-to person. They will develop and cultivate the personal relationships with, if there's a neighborhood association, with that neighborhood association. If there's not a neighborhood association, and maybe even if there is, we all know that there are informal leaders in neighborhoods. There are matriarchs and patriarchs in particular neighborhoods. So that person, that hub manager, is really the person who cultivates the more personable relationship between the city departments and that neighborhood.
Excellent.
My question is, well, first of all, I have mentioned this a while back. Of course, I wasn't on the first PAC, but being a long-time Gainesville resident, activist, and pastor, now retired, I just thought it was important to bring it back, which I did a couple of months ago. My question is, what kind of times are we looking at in terms of these particular gatherings? You have a combination of mornings and evenings or that kind of thing?
Thank you, Pastor. We really work at the behest and the convenience of the neighborhood. So if the neighborhood has meetings already set up in the evenings, that's when we go. If they have meetings set up on, I'm gonna make up a Tuesday at 2:45 p.m., that's when we go. We do work at what is best for each neighborhood. So every neighborhood is unique, and so our approach to every neighborhood is unique. What's the same is the commitment to high level of service and making sure that each community, each neighborhood is thriving as we work our way, I'm not going to say out of the neighborhood, but work our way where we are, where they need less immediate attention for issues. So as we solve problems and they are more empowered, then we are able to step back a little bit more. But they will always have that hub manager there to assist with whatever they need with the city, as well as any department. This doesn't preclude them from going to Chief Scott if there's an issue, or going to Director Persons if there's an issue. But this is a person that they have a number for that they can call and know that they can get immediate attention.
Okay, and I think that's good, because that kind of interaction will only help to strengthen overall of the communities and those that are involved. So I think that's great, and appreciate your support and input with that.
Thank you, sir.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
This is just a practical question. If we wanted to coordinate a member of the council attending one of these meetings to talk about what we do, who we are, what we're there for, is there a central place online that we can look to find meeting schedules, or is there a contact that we would reach out to? Is it you? Is
So
it the hub managers?
I am the central contact. I am the hub of the hub.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't claim to know much about everything, but I know a little bit about some things, and I do know who to call. So I will be able to give you the numbers or get you in contact with the specific hub managers for the neighborhoods. And the great thing is, as we're rolling out the second, third, and fourth neighborhoods, which they are coming pretty close back to back to back, we would be able to incorporate your council in some of those initial meetings, so that we can have very early on contact and begin to help build your relationship with those neighborhoods as well.
That would be fantastic. Yeah. Okay, great. All right.
Okay,
Any other questions?
seeing no other questions, I'll go on to another project that I am actually pretty excited about. City Services Fair. We plan on showcasing and highlighting projects and programs and services that our city currently has open and available to the community. If you think of a job fair, I don't know if any of you have ever attended the job fair that the former EO office, now the Office of Equity and Inclusion, have hosted traditionally in September over many, many years. I believe Chief Scott was one of the founding members of that job fair a long time ago, many years ago. He's kind of old. I'm also a comedian in my head, so if I crack a joke here or there, y'all, this is who I am all the time. Y'all take it for love. So kind of think of it like that. It's going to be a place where people can come, go from space to space, table to table, and learn about the services that our different departments have that we offer to the neighbors in our city and in the greater community, frankly. So our first one will be on June 25th. And then we'll have another one on September 24th. The first one is already scheduled to be held at the Martin Luther King Center from 9 to 12, again on June 25th. And our thought is, after speaking to Mr. Purvis, why not engage and involve our councils at those, and our advisory committees at those events. It's not required that any council or advisory committee go, but it's just showing yet another service that the city provides. And who knows, if there are vacancies, then maybe there could be interest sparked. But it's a way to help folks become more engaged and a way for our advisory councils to showcase the work that they do on behalf of the city. So I'll pause again. Are there any?
Oh, that one in September again.
September 24th, because we're in Gainesville and everybody knows that anything from mid-August to December has to work around Gator games. That's an away Gator game.
All right, yeah.
So
And there's one on June 25th also?
June 25th is our first one.
Okay.
So this is also a commercial. We would like for everyone to come out, even if the council decides not to table at that event.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, please go, and then we'll get Ms. Fox on.
Oh, I can wait if you want.
Okay. Ms. Fox, do you have a
Good
comment or
evening,
question?
good evening, everyone. I'm here. I just wanted to ask Deborah if she would send us out an email to remind us when these community events are.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Great idea.
So if we table, what materials would we have? And then, so like the Equity Inclusion Office, will they have the materials about the anti-discrimination, the enhanced? Are they going to have placards and stuff, flyers?
So I would be presumptuous if I said what each table would have on it, because I don't work in those departments. But my presumption, I won't say assumption because we know about assumption, but my presumption would be that they would have all of their public facing, all of the services that they provide and resources that they offer to our neighbors, they would have that available. What I'm happy to do is, if you jot it down, I can pass it along to Mr. Folston, who leads that office, to offer that as a suggestion to make sure that they have that there.
Yeah, if we had your email and phone number, are you going to give us that?
Sure, I'm happy to give it to you.
Okay. Mr. Folston, I was part of a group that helped push through that program, and I want to make sure because people still don't know,
Okay.
so I can email him.
That's the great thing about this services fair. There are a lot of little known or unknown gems in the city.
Yeah.
And even when we started seeking out participation from the departments, there were a couple of things that I said, oh wow, I didn't know we did that. So we have great resources here at the city. So we are hoping that this fair and the others are well attended so that folks can learn about the things that we have available for our neighbors.
So I could table, I just don't know what materials would we have.
We have the copy of the city ordinance that
Boring.
created us.
That's boring.
That's pretty boring. We don't have a brand really, right? We don't have a banner or a
I
logo.
suspect we could ask GPD for a little help. I mean, we don't need a lot, just need something to hand somebody.
We need something that identifies us, that identifies the person there as a member of the council, right? But other than that,
And invite them at meetings.
yeah. That could be an item that we could work on, is creating some sort of material explaining our function, like a pamphlet or a handout.
Chief, could we work with personnel and Chief Pearson know about that, since they do a lot for us?
Yes, we can, should be able to maybe help put together a brochure and/or see if we can get some, maybe a table covering, something like that. But
That would be nice.
we'll work on it, see. Chief Pierce is listening in, and I'm sure he's anxiously awaiting to help us out with that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Sounds like a good project.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sounds-
Thank you. And then the third one and the last one that I'll present today, that I think directly is an opportunity, a direct opportunity for a partnership between the city and the council is our City Hall 101. If any of you are familiar with our Citizens Academy, Citizens Academy is a wonderful program. It is done though at, I don't know the specific time of day, but I know it's a weekday in the mornings for 6 to 8 weeks. And so that would preclude many members of our community, ones who work during that time, it would preclude them from being a part of that program. City Hall 101 for us, what we are planning, and we are still working out the details, is to really bring kind of a Citizens Academy type program to the communities. So we haven't decided whether or not we want those communities to be aligned in the community first, or whether we will choose other communities to go into, or whether we will pick a location and have it on different nights. But not only would we do the sort of curriculum that's in Citizens Academy, but we'll start with very basic. How do you come before the commission and present a concern? How do you do a public comment? How do you then work with the clerk's office if you have an issue? So we want to start with those very basic things to empower people to feel confident when they come before the commissions with issues, concerns, or proclamations that they would like to have. I'll grab that from you in just a second. Is that a question for me?
Question.
Okay.
How many days a week is this 6 to 8 week curriculum?
So the current Citizens Academy happens, and it hasn't happened during COVID, but it was happening 1 day a week. The City Hall 101, we are working out the details, but we are trying to make bite-size that you will get, you will learn an entire skill or subject or topic in one session. So that if you don't come to the next session, if you are not in town when we come to your neighborhood at the next time, then it's not like it's a buildable. They are just individualized topics that we're going to make sure that we boil down to a small amount of time in understandable jargon, language, just ways to help folks undergird their knowledge in the areas of municipal government. Yes, sir.
Will you give, what do you call it, life credit on some of those units?
Micro credential.
Yeah, like, can I skip the class on how to do citizen comment?
I mean, so it really isn't, we are calling it City Hall 101, but it really isn't a class. It really is just an offering for us to help our neighbors become more knowledgeable. And why I brought it up tonight is we think that having a session on our advisory boards and councils will be a good idea, and we could even feature individual advisory boards and councils, including the police advisory council.
Yeah, sounds like a great opportunity.
So those are the three that we brought up tonight. Of course, Mr. Purvis has my number, and I'm going to give everyone my number.
Okay.
He has my number, so any ideas that you have, we are willing to listen and excited. We have a small but mighty team, but we do have 2,300 other employees. I don't know if y'all know that Verizon commercial. I'm very old, so it's dated. You see my people, I got people. We got 2,300 people behind us, so although we're small, we do have a very deep bench that can help us with making sure that great ideas come to fruition and that are ultimately things that will be a resource for our neighbors. So my name again is Yvette Carter, YVETTE CARTER. My email address is my last name and 2 initials, so it's Carter, CARTER, S like super, Y like Yvette, @gru.com. And if the next speaker comes up and says what my first name is, we won't be friends anymore. I'm just going to say that out loud. So again, it's Carter, SY@GRU.com. I think I do know by heart my number at the GRU building. It's 352-393-1207. I believe my number at City Hall is 352-393-8676. But I'm absolutely certain that the cell phone that they require me to answer every time it rings is 352-275-4846.
All right, any other questions for Ms.
Yay.
Carter? That was excellent.
Thank you.
Some great opportunities for us.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yvette.
Enjoy dinner.
Yes, I hate to present and run, but
No, please, you're taking enough of your time.
See you tomorrow night.
I think something that would be nice to agendize for the next meeting or a future meeting is a discussion about manning these events as they come up and assigning responsibility for manning these events, because it's hard to do this via email, as we've learned.
That's
So
a great idea.
I think we should have a discussion in a future meeting, probably the next meeting, and include it as an explicit agenda item to work out who will actually attend these events, so we make sure we have someone there. Also, a plan for some sort of banner or some sort of brochure or something explaining who we are and why we're there, because we'll want that. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda, I think we got to Chief Scott now. There's a few presentations for us, is what I hear.
Yes, and I'm going to try to make it as quickly as I can. Good evening, Honorable Chair, council members. It's my pleasure to present to you today. So we're going to go through the adult and juvenile arrest. The report that we have here is going to cover all the arrests, both adult and juvenile. And we'll start off with the first slide. And again, typically you can see that the number of felony arrests that we have is significant. In the diagram that you have, black males make up 53 of those arrests for felonies, and white males make up 15. When you look over at the misdemeanor category, you'll note that black males make up 22 of those positions, and white males are 15 again. The breakdown of that is on the next chart. And you can see we have the most arrests for a violent act, and that's simple battery. And you see that we have demographic breakdown with one other male, 6 black females, 4 black males, 2 white females, and 5 white males for those violent acts. And that's typically people getting upset and not thinking clearly and resolve a conflict with physical violence. So that spreads across all demographics. Pedestrian controlled substance is the next highest category. And you can see we have 1 black female and 9 black males and 2 white males in that category. Followed by grand theft with 1 black female, 5 black males, and 1 white male. The others, trespass after warning is 5, aggravated battery is 4. You see the demographic breakdown on that. I'll go to the next slide. Sworn complaints, and these are not physical arrests. The sworn complaints are affidavits that we forward to the state attorney's office, and the state attorney's office decides whether or not they're going to issue a warrant for that person's arrest. You see that we have felonies. We have 28 felonies, sworn complaints that were against black males and 9 against white males. There were 11 against black females and 7 against white females. The next category, as far as misdemeanors go, you see that in the sworn complaints, that 36 of the sworn complaints were against white males for misdemeanors, 25 were for white female, 20 for black males, and 9 for black females. The demographic breakdown, the breakdown for the arrests in the different categories, you can see number 1 under the misdemeanors, alcohol, beverage, possession by person under 21, 27 incidents where we took an action and did a sworn complaint. That just kind of gives you an idea that this is us really finding folks in the parties that are underage and us taking some proactive measures trying to address it. Ideally, we would like to resolve these issues without physical arrest. So we'll take the option of a sworn complaint or GPA or notice to appear. But that has there's some guidance that has to be used, some common sense. If a person is so inebriated that they can't get home safely, and even if they got home safely, they might have a health issue, sometimes it pushes us to the point where we have to physically take them into custody. Because if we release them and they stumble out in front of a car, or we release them and they go home and they die from alcohol poisoning, then I think it places some of that culpability on us. Yes, sir.
Chief, on the sworn complaints, what percentage of the total sworn complaints would you say are University of Florida students? 50%, 80%? Just, I'm not looking for specific, but just kind of ballpark.
I don't know, but I would say for underage drinking, I would guess that more than 50% of those are going to be university and or Santa Fe college students. That's typically, the contact for these folks typically is going to be downtown or midtown. So a good share of those are going to be, I would say you could say very safely, over 50% and maybe as high as 75%. Petty theft is the next category. You'll see that we have 19 of those, and simple batteries, again, 10. So these are, typically with batteries we try to resolve it without having to take people to jail, but if it looks like there's a continuation that could occur, further activity, or we can't locate the person, we'll do a sworn complaint. The next slide deals with the pre-arrest. Shows that for adults, that we have 6 white males that received the pre-arrest citation, followed by 3 white females, 1 black male, and 1 black female. The breakdown of that, again, you see number 1 is the alcohol beverage. That's people drinking. The petty theft comes up after that, and I want to note that in the alcohol beverages, you notice that's 3 white females and 2 white males. So again, a good chance that these could be university students and or Santa Fe students. The possession of less than 20 grams of cannabis, 2 white males. In this category, you can see there's not a lot of folks here. But again, these are offenses that are not typically violent acts to the point that we would have to, take them into custody, although battery is one. The next slide deals with the notice to appear. And again, 1 black male, 1 white male for misdemeanors, alcohol violation, and petty theft. Now, let me tell you, you see that alcohol is leading here. We would probably double or triple these numbers if we had the appropriate staff, if we had additional staff to address it. But the staff are out dealing with, person crimes where people are in danger is a higher priority, and we'll be dealing with that as opposed to dealing with, quality of life issues. So even with that limitation, we have a couple of nights where we have decent staffing, and our folks are out there doing this, and that's the result. But I've seen it in the past where we could probably get into the hundreds in this type of category. But hopefully, we can get our staffing up and we can deter some of this drinking, because ultimately people end up getting hurt one way or the other when they drink sometimes and not control themselves. Mr.
You have a
Blunt?
question or comment?
Yeah, a moment ago, you were talking about trying to avoid taking people in, and so you do citations instead. And I think you said something about if there's ongoing or threat of violence, or you can't locate the person. I didn't quite understand
Yeah.
that part.
Okay, so two people have a disturbance. They have a fight. They have a physical fight. So they had a disagreement. Somebody punches one, and the other one punches them back. Or one person gets punched and knocked to the ground, the person runs off. We get there. They say, "Hey, Joe Smo punched me." Okay, where is he? He went in that direction. We go looking for him. We can't find him. But you know who this person is, and we can identify them. Then we do a sworn complaint. We can't locate you, but we're going to do a sworn complaint. It'll go to the state attorney's office. They evaluate it. They say, "Hey, this looks credible. I think there's probable cause here. We think we can prosecute this." They issue a warrant, and then we go and pick them up, or they get picked up later on under the warrant. But they don't get physically arrested that day. And that happens quite often. I mean, it might be a pushing match or something if it's not domestic and non-domestic. And you have to remember, a battery doesn't necessarily take a punch. It could actually be a unwanted touch. You know, somebody grabbing you, somebody pushing you away. So all of those things fall into the category of batteries.
I had a question too about
Yes.
sworn complaints for felony possession of a controlled substance. It looks like there were 3 cases of that, 3 instances where a sworn complaint was issued instead of an arrest. And I was curious how much discretion officers have to issue a sworn complaint, sort of what the circumstances are where they would issue that sworn complaint rather than make an arrest for felony possession of a controlled substance.
It all depends on, as far as narcotics goes, there's a whole lot of other parameters that kick in.
Yeah.
Maybe this person's going to work with us on trying to identify the supplier. And so we might work on a deal that, hey, we're going to, instead of taking you to jail tonight, we're going to issue a sworn complaint. That's hoping to get your cooperation. Maybe you gave us some additional information that helped us to do something. Because we're not as interested in, quite frankly, the users, taking them off the street. We're trying to get them help with some type of medical assistance. We're looking at the seller. So if we can get to the seller, then that's the person that we're doing. The other side of the coin is, again, we may get there, we may actually know this person had dope, had a narcotic, but we went to locate them. I mean, we even bought it undercover from them. We went to locate them, they got word that we were looking for them, and they fled. So there's a lot of the parameters about how that could come about. The officer does have some discretion, but typically if you're dealing with felony amounts of narcotics, you're going to physically arrest them unless some of these other parameters kick in. It's just a lot of other things that could happen. I mean, if I have you, and felony could be, the amount that you have, or it could be the fact that you were trying to sell it. Or you have that package to be sold, or you're within so many feet of a school or something like that. All this stuff kicks in, and then we contact the narcotics unit. They come over and say, "Okay, we'll take it from here." And the person says, "Hey, I'll tell you who I bought it from. I'm going to take you to the house." The whole deal. We say, "Okay, what we're going to do then? We're going to get," because one thing may be that we don't want that person it to be known that that person was arrested. Because it spooks everybody. But there's a lot more. That's just a couple of scenarios. There's other scenarios where it comes into play. But typically, because the nexus with narcotics and violent crime is so strong, when you deal, we're not talking about the users, but primarily when you're dealing with the narcotic sellers, the leniency there or the approach there is going to be a lot more progressive. I mean, it's like, no, we're going to take you to jail if we can.
Got it.
I have a 2-part question for you. So, what's the population of black males in Gainesville?
I don't know what the population of black males. I know I think blacks are about 23% of the population of Gainesville, somewhere between 23 and 24%.
what would you attribute to the, because black males are leading in felony arrests, but then in most of the misdemeanors, they fall off, as well as the sworn complaints and the pre-arrest program. What would you attribute to that? Is it most of that discretionary?
No, I mean, a lot of it's, if you look at it's violent crimes. If you're violent, you know, we're gonna do what we can to try to remove you from the streets. The petty theft stuff and stuff along those lines, I mean, that's not gonna be, even the alcohol violations, you know, that to a certain extent, and you notice that a large number of non-blacks that were cited for alcohol violations, you know, that's not an offense we're going to typically take you to jail for unless we need to get you off the street for your own safety. So it's the type of crimes that are really dictating that. And that's not just something that's local. That's a national dynamic. Look at the victims and the perpetrators of violent crimes. You know, unfortunately, blacks are leading in those categories. And so we take it to be a challenge to try to identify how we as a community can address that. How can we as a community work it out so that we can identify what's causing this and then try to cure that. And we can't do it as a police department. You can't do it alone. I mean, we together really, we'll be able to do that. You know, maybe you have some answers to the question that you asked that we don't know about. And some of this is socioeconomic, a good part of it is socioeconomic. Some of it it's going to be, years of people having to fend for themselves and coming up with ways and growing up in an environment where that was okay. You know, and I can attest to that because I grew up in an environment where some of this activity was okay until you learn different or you are provided a means to get out, a way to get out. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do is identify a way that we can help folks pick themselves up and get out of those situations.
Just to quickly follow on Fareed's question, I mean, that was the reason I highlighted felony possession of a controlled substance, because that's one of the cases where black males are leaders in arrests.
Yeah.
And it seemed like one of the few categories where it seemed like there could be some discretionary wiggle room about arrest rather than sworn complaint or pretrial. But I'm now understanding that felony possession of a controlled substance could range from a small amount of something to pounds and pounds of it with the intent to distribute. I would need to know more. You would need to know more about what those 9 cases involve.
You know, unfortunately, you know, just give me a little example of how the narcotics ties in. You know, I was talking to a citizen this past week, and I said, you notice you don't see many old narcotics dealers. You know, there's a reason for that. You know, they either end up in jail or they end up being killed by one of the competitors or one of the customers. You know, and there's a lot going on. It's just too much. I mean, the police are after you, your competitors are after you, your customers are after you. You know, there's just, you don't see, that's not a life that you're going to have any longevity in, quite frankly, living that way. And I was pointing out to them, you know, why we need to come up with some different methods of trying to help our folks learn, quite frankly, how to earn a living safely. You know, and the nexus to violent crime and narcotics is tight. It's tight. You know, unfortunately, you got to think that you're selling narcotics to people who are addicted to a substance, and they'll do anything to get it. And sometimes that anything includes killing you. Same thing with people that are selling. You know, your competitors see you and you're doing better than they are. You know, they take those actions. So that's why, I mean, now misdemeanor charges for narcotics, somebody that has personal use marijuana, yes, it's still illegal. And yes, we do make arrests on that occasionally. But that is not our top target. Our targets are the people that are selling.
Any other questions?
Okay,
You have some more statistics.
yeah, we talked about the juvenile arrest. As you can see, this 2 black females, 7 black males, 3 for felonies, and 3 black females, and 1 black male for misdemeanors. You know, that's something I also want to highlight. Is, you know, unfortunately, females are increasingly becoming involved in this activity, and we end up arresting them. And if any of you saw the videos that we showed at the city commission meeting, you noted that there were females out there fighting. You know, and it's unfortunate is that, and it becomes a dangerous situation, you know, when that happens, particularly when you introduce weapons. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, colleagues, sir. Yeah.
Are there any columns missing on this chart?
Columns?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
That chart, that's everybody that was arrested in there. That was juveniles, black females, and black males. That's all that were in that category. The next slide deals with the sworn complaints, I believe, juvenile sworn complaints. You see that there were 2 black males and for the felonies, 2 black females for the misdemeanors, and 3 black males for the misdemeanor, 1 white male and 1 white female for the misdemeanor as far as sworn complaints go. Crimes, you know, alcohol under 21, simple battery, you know, again, somebody's fighting, somebody's committing a violent act, you know, that person quite frankly could have gone to jail, but they have a sworn complaint here. Criminal mischief, those are the highest categories there for that. Juvenile citation misdemeanors, the next slide. We had 7 black females and 4 black males. And what was it primarily? See, 2 of those were in the fray, that's people fighting in public. You had 7 batteries. That's people, you know, hitting, touching one another against the person's will. And then you had the false alarm of a fire, petty theft. The 2 highest categories, and the highest category is batteries. So, unfortunately, you know, folks are fighting. We have to take more progressive action and try to remove them from the equation.
These are primary complaints, correct? I mean, a person may have 3 or 4 charges on them.
That's true. That's
Those
true.
are the primary charges.
Yes.
What's that fray?
That's the fight in public.
Like,
I had a question. How many of these the juveniles are happening at schools and the school resource officer is managing it versus in the community kind of ballpark?
I don't know, but I could tell you that the school resource officers use other methods sometimes.
Right, I know they try very hard not to.
They may refer it to the administrative discipline process and not necessarily make an arrest.
Okay.
So, you know, what you see here, and even a road officer, this is not all the contact that we've had with people.
No.
We walk up on stuff and people are fighting and, you know, we go, probably, okay, you can go to jail or you can go home, okay? And they go, this is ridiculous, you shouldn't be fighting, okay, you guys gonna be, and they go home. So what you see is where the officer's gotten, someone either called us or the officer got to a point where they felt they had to do it because they're darned if they do and darned if they don't. So I walk up and I see a couple of people fighting and I tell them, hey, you go that way, you go that way. And I walk off and I leave them and they get back together and somebody gets killed. So the officers have to make sure that when they do that, the people are going to walk off and go home. Somebody else is going to grab them and take them away. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it's not, and what you see is the culmination where they felt like they had to do something. But I can guarantee you there's situations where they just, you know, you don't feel like you don't want to go out to the jail. You don't want to take people out to the jail, particularly family members, 2 brothers fighting, you know, a brother and sister fighting. You know, the state law gives us certain guidelines, but we have a little latitude. But, you know, we try our best to minimize the impact as best we can. The next information we have for you is...
one more question.
Yes.
So the Gainesville pre-arrest adult, so are we talking about some kind of diversion program?
Yes.
Is that, so again, it's like, there was no other way for any of these people, all these people arrested to have gone into a diversion program? Are you saying it's up to the state attorney, or are y'all, because you have your own program, where you recommend it?
It's up to the officers on the scene, it's up to the state attorney's office. You know, if you have an arrest, that officer on the scene made a determination that they needed to arrest that person. If you have you have other citations and things like that, it could be handled differently. The number of arrests that you have here, and this is for the top 10, just looking at that, that's probably 70 maybe. I'm not going to take a guess at that. I'm just taking a wild guess at numbers. I can guarantee you that our number of contacts far exceed that. And there's people that, if you look at the number of arrests for battery, 18 domestic, we can't take, there's no other alternative there typically, domestic battery.
Right.
Somebody's going to jail.
Uh-huh.
The possession of controlled substance felony, typically that person's going to jail. The grand theft auto, you know, that speaks for itself. Trespass after warning, you notice that's down to like 5. Typically, a person arrested for trespass after warning, we have warned them. And sometimes, multiple times, and some people will refuse, and I had that happen, I had an officer tell me about that recently. They say, the people don't want you here, we warn you, you cannot be here. You're gonna have to take me to jail. I mean, that happens. If any of you come out and ride, and you'll see it for yourself, that sometimes folks just don't know, I don't care. Or, you know, you got a couple of people, and sometimes people are emotionally charged, and they just don't want to leave. The person says, I don't want to date you anymore, leave, and no, I'm not leaving. And, you know, we have to do something. So, but for every person that we take to jail, I guarantee you there's probably 2 or 3 of them that we never did take to jail.
Well, I'm just specifically looking at the pre-arrest diversion. I mean, grand total 9.
Yes.
I mean, even the petty theft, the petite theft, alcohol beverage, of course, that seems to be mostly white people. I understand, because we've done this enough, about the battery and stuff, but it seems like more people other than white female, white male could be offered the opportunity to do diversion program.
There are parameters about what can be offered, like that, you know, violent crimes cannot be
Right,
offered.
but there's like all this petty theft. I mean, there's 19 of those.
Which sheet are you looking at?
Sworn complaints.
Complaints?
And then you have diversion program, and even when you go back to adult arrest, I mean, we just see that over and over. It's out of proportion, white females and white males are being offered the opportunity to go into the diversion program. That's all I'm saying.
Those are typically alcohol offenses. You know, if they were battery, I would agree with you. But what those are alcohol offenses. You know, typically alcohol and, what was the other one? A petty theft, and you had 2 people, but alcohol was 5. And then possession of cannabis was 2. Now you go back and look at the number of people that were arrested. Possession of cannabis doesn't, I'm looking at the chart here, I don't see that in the top 10 on the chart.
They're not.
You know, if you look at the arrests for adults, that's the second page. Again, it depends on the type of crime and specifically whether or not it's one of the exemptions that we have for that.
But these numbers are all over the place because if you look at some of them, white males are neck and neck with black males, simple battery. 4 black males, five white males.
What page are you on?
For arrests or?
Arrest, adult arrest. So, I mean, in some cases, these numbers say otherwise. And the pre-arrest program is pretty much reflecting the rest of the system. And if I had to guess why it was started, I'm assuming it was to decrease arrests in certain communities, I'm sure. I spoke with the officer, a road officer, night shift. He knew nothing about the program. He actually asked if one of us could come speak to them about it.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
When was this?
this was right after our last meeting, so a month ago.
Well, if that's the case, then obviously we're not doing a good enough job training. But I know that
I think
Ms.
the numbers say so.
Ms. Charlotte Head Jones actually went and did the training. And it's in our, they have to sign off for it. It's in our procedures. So the officer, but if you got an officer telling you that they don't know anything about it, I don't know if it's a trainee,
No,
you know, it's an officer that's been there for more than a year,
3 years, solo.
then you know, we got an issue then. We'll have to go and check. And you said that was on the night shift?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll follow up. 'Cause we'll go to the briefing and we'll say, okay, who doesn't know about this and why? So that points out that we need to do a little better training and we'll follow up on that.
The absolute numbers do seem low of pre-arrests.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are low.
Especially in a college town. I can't believe there isn't more for possession of less than 20 grams of cannabis. I mean, only 2.
Well, not only that, you got black males committing 53 felonies, but next to nothing else. That just doesn't make sense that
These are the criteria, so if they've.
black males are being arrested for felonies at the rate of 53.
Part of it is
But-
the communities are much more controlled.
No one is committing anything.
Well, a lot of
else.
those crimes are also going to be reported by members of the community. If somebody steals your car, you're going to get a crime report, and police are going to show up. If you're carrying 20 grams of pot, no one's calling the cops.
Well, that's true. You have to have a report with the police.
All right, so let me give you the criteria that we use for the pre-arrest situation.
Oh, no,
So they have a criminal history. The offender must comport with the following eligibility requirements. They have to be 18 or older. The offender must be a resident in Alachua County. The offender's identification must be verified either by ID or electronic media. The offender must not have any outstanding or arrestable warrants. The offender must not have any felony convictions in the 3 years preceding the current offense. The offender must not have any misdemeanor convictions in the 2 years preceding the current offense, including any prior driving under the influence convictions. Prior traffic convictions, excluding DUI or prior adjudications of delinquency, will not disqualify a participant from participation in this program. The eligible violation occurred during an incident in which the person was also charged with an ineligible offense, and the offender must not have participated in the program more than 2 previous times in his or her lifetime, with no more than a maximum total of 3 times as a program participant. Now, that just kind of gives you an illustration of the parameters that the officer has to deal with. Now, the crimes, the offenses that are eligible, domestic and or dating violence is not eligible.
Can you repeat the one about, was there something about a DUI or something?
Yeah.
Well, can you repeat that one for me?
Sorry.
DUI in the previous 2 years, I think.
If you had DUI, the offender must not have any misdemeanor conviction in the past 2 years preceding the current offense, including any prior DUI convictions. Okay? So the officers are faced with all of these different criterias, and
these are the offenses, including the ones in red, are also still on.
So if the person is, any offense that a person commits, domestic and dating violence, domestic and or dating violence injunctions, violation of pre-arrest, pre-trial release, DUI, the loitering and prowling, the animal abuse, stalking, exposure of sexual organs, those are not offenses that we would do a diversion program for. So again, this is our policy, this is our procedures. It's not guided toward anything other than what the state law allows us to do, as well as what we decide to do as far as locally, how we fine tune this.
So just a couple things to mention about the GPA program. If we get there and the person says, I don't want to participate in the program, then we can't give them a GPA diversion. So if the offender tells us they don't want to, we can't do it. So that's number one. Number two is the person's not there and they have left the scene, which happens a lot of times in petty thefts, but we have enough information in terms of identity verification, we will charge them with a sworn complaint. And that sworn complaint is because that person wasn't on the scene in order for us to charge them. So when you look at that, that's also some of the reasoning. Remember, this is a draft that hasn't been, and we're trying to get it approved.
Colleen, question?
I
That's
have-
late, so we're gonna go a little long.
I have two questions, one about that list you just did, and the other about the in-service. Does an officer have to go through and check off all of it, or is some super algorithm there
Exactly.
that just runs it all and lets them know eligible or not?
Say it again now.
Are all the person's information going into some system and a super algorithm just runs that whole list and tells the officer eligible or not, or they have to run each item?
The officer has to
themselves?
have that conversation with the person and has to do the research themselves.
And for the in-service, for the diversion stuff, were those one-on-one classroom situations, or were they computer modules? How was that in-service done before they sign off that they took it?
I know she presented that to all the shifts. And in addition to that, whenever we have policy, the policy is put into a system that they have to read and acknowledge that they received that policy. So we have a system that says, okay, there's a new policy that's been issued. Chief signed off on it today. You need to go in and sign for it. And then we have a log of everybody that's gone in and read those things. So if you had a person that says, hey, I didn't get it, we have it for that reason, so we can go back and say, okay, you signed for it on this date. So you should know what that policy says. Okay, and in some cases, we actually test people on the different policies to see what their knowledge is.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in real quick. Are those criteria published anywhere yet, or are they only in draft form? The criteria that you just read?
Oh no, that's.
It's in draft form.
But we also have didn't we sign one?
We have another
Yeah.
version set of criteria for the initial one, including a memo that Chief Scott, I apologize, please excuse me for interrupting, Chief, I apologize for that. We have a memo from Chief Jones when we first initiated the program, and that was back in 2021, and we started, I think, in June, or somewhere in there. January 18th, 2021, we started.
Okay.
So we have a memo with guidelines. We have another policy that guides diversion and how we use that program and how it goes to the state attorney's office. And then, so at this point, we're still in draft.
And I sat in the committee with Chief Jones at the time and Ms. Head Jones and John Alexander, and we formulated the criteria. And we made that comport to what the state statute had, because the state statute, I think, was a little more restrictive. But there are certain things you have to do. The state attorney has their own program. And so we had to try to comport our program with the state attorney's office. We have no authority to dismiss a case. The state attorney's office can elect not to handle the case or to dismiss the case. And what the other thing that may not come through in here is that some folks may elect not to participate in it because there's a cost to it. You know, there's a cost to that to participate in that program, and because they have to go for some type of remediation, is to try to help them with anger management or some other things that may come into play. So all of those are factors that come into play when these folks are making decisions about whether or not to participate in the program.
We should probably put a bow on this soon because we're running pretty late. But I think it might be, given the line of questioning that we have here, I think it might be helpful for us, and apologies if you've done this before already and I forgot, but to get a copy of those criteria that you just described.
As well as the memos?
Via Deborah, sorry.
Say it again?
As well as the memos?
As well as
Memos.
The memos you describing the program to,
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
No problem.
That would be very helpful, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, again, we did this once before, but one thing that we can do is we can bring Ms. Jones back. We can sit down and go through the criteria. We can provide you the criteria. We can sit down and give you the numbers and go through everything but you've had that once before. Well, some of you have. Some of you may not have, and it's not an issue for us to bring it back. And again, you know, we do the volume of what we do and the fact that we have the advances that we have in the way that we deal with people. Putting people in jail doesn't necessarily solve the problem. And all of our I think our efforts are trying to resolve the problem. You know, and if it takes putting a person in jail to help with that, sometimes we do it. That may get them the help that they need. You know, Chief Jones and I share the one thing that we share for sure is that we know how we impact the community when we police it. And we want to police it with our community, not necessarily to police the community, but do it in concert with the community. So everything that we have into place, I welcome the scrutiny. If you got a better idea on how we can do this, throw it out there. We've been more than happy to entertain that.
I think that we're all pretty positive on the pre-arrest program in general.
Yeah.
yeah, we like it.
Do you want to
Can I
make a
just
last
ask,
quick comment?
how hard would it be to institute what Kali was talking about, that it actually pops up that they have to affirmatively say this was offered or it met the criteria? Because I think y'all are fabulous right here, but I'm not sure other people are taking the time, other officers are taking the time to even think about it. How hard would it be, what Kali was saying, that you have to affirmatively say, this meets the criteria? Y'all
Check
have
the
to check
boxes
off
every
a lot
time.
of other stuff, yeah.
Typically in a report, when they write a report, if they don't take those options, they have to explain it. So if they decide that they're not going to do a GPA, it may be because, and they list that in some of the criteria that, some of the reports that they have. You know, this is, and you know, I could stand here and give you an explanation, I think, but the best way to actually see it is for you to go there, get in that car, ride with the officer and see what they encounter. And then, I mean, because I know that's worked with some other folks, and then you can see for yourself. I mean, and you talk with the officers. And for me, talk with an officer, which now causes me concern because I have to go back and find out who doesn't know about the program that we've had in place for a year and a half now, and then make sure that all those folks have it, because they may show a weakness in what we're doing as far as training. But that's a toolbox. We give them a toolbox. These are different tools, and whenever an officer makes an arrest, that takes them out of service. So if we're telling you we're tight on staffing, if I'm going to make an arrest, it should be a significant arrest. I can't just arrest someone for an open container and take them to jail, which really open containers, if it was in play, is typically a civil infraction. It's not something we're going to take people to jail for anyway. And typically it's a civil infraction. But officers want to avoid having to take that trip out there for some minor offense. You would rather do a citation or something to avoid taking that trip out there for some little minor offense. You go out to the jail, you want it to be for something that's worthwhile, as far as someone being removed from the street because they're a danger to themselves or somebody else.
In the future, can we get, because I'm struggling with this 53 felonies by black males. But it's not showing up here. Can we get that? Can we get a better breakdown of that to find out exactly what those crimes are?
Breakdown of what?
The 53 felonies?
Do you just want crime site 3?
Say that one more time?
Crime site, like the?
Yes, what the crime was, what the charges were.
What page are you up to?
First one.
The first one.
Any,
Top 10. We
any
have
specific?
the top 10 offenses is in the presentation.
Yeah,
Those
it's,
53.
Do you want an additional breakdown of the rows of the, because those are broken down here.
Right, but what I'm saying is, right here, we say we have 53 felony arrests for black males, but this page here shows majority misdemeanors, and the felony arrests don't add up nowhere near 53. So
I follow you.
what
Oh, I
are
see what
those
you're saying.
arrests?
Yeah, I mean, we'll provide it, it's just gonna make, it's gonna be a little more paper, but we'll do it.
That's fine.
That's no
It'll
problem.
be clearer though to understand, because
That's what you're saying.
it's saying, I mean, we're hearing that those are violent crimes, but if those crimes are so violent, I would think that they would be on here, right?
They're not all violent, but I'm telling you, violent crimes are the ones that we definitely take you to jail. They could be narcotics, it could be selling narcotics, it could be a host of other things, but if it's a felony is a higher level charge, more than likely you're gonna go to jail,
All right.
you know, or you're gonna get charged with a sworn complaint.
All right. I think in the interest of time, at 7:45, I think it'd be great to wrap this up by 8 if possible. Maybe we should move on to, where are we on the agenda now?
Internal affairs.
Internal affairs investigations?
Yeah, we
Now-
can say, wait, did you want him to table about reactive?
Oh, yeah, you had several presentations. You weren't even just doing the.
Yeah, but you know,
I'm sorry,
I need to
Rob.
probably sit down with you and cull out some of this information and really give you what you really want to hear. You know, because I can give you a lot of different information, but it may not be something that you feel is pertinent. So maybe I'll meet with you, and I don't know if you have anybody else in there. We just kind of go through and say, is this what you want? And make sure I give you what you want and not necessarily just a bunch of numbers, because, you know, that's just numbers. You know, so I'll be more than happy to sit down with you and come up with a
Can we do
better
this,
report.
instead of having a presentation, do this next one?
Yeah,
I don't respond.
We'll
Sorry.
table through this.
All students have on my person.
we can table the next two presentations for next
Yeah,
month.
yeah, why don't we table the next two presentations for next
Next
meeting then?
month.
Is that,
And
and we
then-
can also chat.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're trying to answer, you asked for some other information previously.
Yeah, no, this is, we
And
want
so-
that, we
I
want
want
that
that.
information.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So we're just trying to bring it back
But
to you.
people
but-
also want to go home.
I like
Well, I
to hear
think-
yours. We didn't have to
Including you.
listen to Dave Wilson so long.
I can't.
Well, we had a, yeah, and we started
I thought it was
15
3
minutes late,
minutes.
so, you know,
All
hopefully
right,
we can start on
right.
time next time.
I apologize.
Sorry.
I know
It's
it,
not as part of the.
I know it was gonna be lengthy, and we'll try to be more succinct.
No,
but, you
no,
know,
we're asking you a lot of questions.
Okay,
It's
that's,
not-
I'm fine.
We really appreciate it. So here's another thought, moving on down the agenda. So we have internal affairs case reviews. We have 1, 2, 3,
6.
4, 5, 6 cases to review.
Oh.
I wonder if it's possible, I don't know if this is procedurally possible or not, to select our highest priority case
Sure.
for review
We can do that.
for tonight, and then table the other ones that are lower priority, so that we can.
I read them all.
What's the juiciest?
The juiciest one,
Yeah, they win, oh, yeah.
I think the one about the school is probably the one I'd like to hear a little more about.
Yeah, 044, 003, and 013 are my top 3.
Top one.
Mine was Oakwood.
The top one is,
Top one.
So,
The top one, the one on top?
No, I'm telling you. She
The
looked
top
at the top
one.
3. What's
yeah,
your-
when they said top 3, the top one would be the school resource officer, I think. But I would like to ask questions about the other ones another time.
Yeah, I would, yeah, we could,
we will have another cachet next month also, just so you know.
Oh, another
There
large.
are- Yes,
yeah.
I actually think
but it's-
044 we talked about before.
it's a different case.
It
Another
is.
wrong
It's a
name?
different
one.
case.
It's a different
It's a
one, and I
different
went,
case.
Another
oh, when I
wrong
read it.
name?
Yes,
Uh-oh.
yes. So I'm okay with whatever you guys choose to decide to move forward, but if you, next month, we will have more than 6 on the list next month, so.
Well, I'd say just get started and we'll see how many we can get through tonight. How's that?
How about 003?
Sure, we can do that.
That's the,
That's
that's
good.
our.
So number 1 was 0046.
Yeah, that's the one I was interested in.
I think we're hearing more input about the
I'm open to
SRO.
whatever.
Okay.
That's the postage one.
Okay,
Oh, why did I put 003?
I don't
so
know. it's very
this
confusing.
case was
046.
received.
Okay.
That's the one I was like, oh,
So we'll
man,
start with the, yeah.
there's a lot going on in here.
Okay. Do you want me to
So-
review them, or do you just want to ask questions?
So,
'Cause I
yeah,
can.
so can we just assume that people have read the
I
reports?
read it.
Okay.
And then start with questions?
Boy.
You want to go first?
So we're on 046?
Yeah, 046.
Yeah, so this case was received on September 23rd of 2021. It occurred at the Aquin Jones School.
Oh, no, I have a question.
Oh, so
I think we all read it.
Okay.
Yeah, I read it.
So I think we all found it very disturbing. I learned a lot about the SROs, even though I worked with them when I was crossing guard. I find it disturbing that he got a 3-day suspension since he had been cautioned at least 2 other times. And why is he still an SRO?
Okay, so.
That's my question.
Okay, absolutely. So he had been cautioned, we actually, within that year, we had had an incident where he had been cautioned on that, and we followed our E3 rule, our set of code of conduct. So on that one, we had it documented within the system. The next offense and the recommendation for this violation was an E3. It's productivity, so it's a 13. And productivity, workmanship, not up to standard. And if I had brought my E3 rules with you, the next offense is a 24-hour suspension. So he got an employee notice. He's going to go through remedial training, and they are going to go through the video and make sure that this officer is clear on what his role is within the school.
I have a quick follow-up question.
That's excellent. Yes.
If this incident were to happen again, one like this involving that officer, what would be the next?
So the next offense could be dismissal or more suspension time. So meaning it could go up to 40 hours, it could go up to 80 hours. But the option in the E3 rules is it gets up to, when you get into those higher suspensions, the other option is dismissal.
Okay, so they could be fired.
Yes.
Well, I mean, why is he? I don't want anyone fired. I just think he's unsuited for the job. I've seen a lot of, school resource officers. He seems unsuited, his temperament for the job. So why can't he go to another?
He's currently not assigned to that bureau.
Okay.
I will just say, just this whole situation makes me very stressed and sad to read.
Me too.
It's actually for everybody involved, and, yeah.
Well, it makes me know I'm not cut out to be a school
Yeah,
resource
well,
officer.
I
because
knew I was not
That's
quite a while ago, but
incredibly
this has gotta just be unbelievably
challenging,
difficult.
yeah.
Is there any difference in E3 procedures for SROs versus any other officers?
They are equal amongst all employees in the city of Gatesville. And that's why E3 is written that way as the code of conduct, is to hold everyone accountable to the same standard and to have a set of guidelines to follow when we have issues. So that way, similar offenses will be treated with the same discipline. And it is deemed after
But a more
looking.
serious offense could jump.
Oh, yes, it
up on
can.
that procedure.
So the E3 guidelines are a minimum guideline that we can go above it, but typically we never go below it unless there is an extreme mitigating circumstance to the case. And in some cases, and you guys might remember, we had a very young trainee officer, who was in training, and they made a mistake. So they still had a field training officer with them, so we took that into account. But other than that, we usually follow the guidelines. So it's a minimum set with a maximum that could happen. Mr. Blunt, yes, sir.
Is there any concern in administration that this is not an odd man out? And if you do suspect that, how do you find out? How do you make sure that this is not a common set of behavior and attitude?
So our school resource officers Mr. Blunt, are honestly our best trained. This complaint came internally from a supervisor through the chain of command, and that's how we ended up getting it. So we expect the supervisors anytime that any type of handle with care technique, which is different than our response to resistance training, is utilized. We are mandated by our policy that we document handle with care. We're also mandated that we document response to resistance, or otherwise called use of force. That's the old terminology that we use. And it has to go into a blue team system. And we have an early warning on that system, which basically, if you have so many uses of forces within a year, a little flag gets tendered and it gets sent to the Internal Affairs Division commander. And then we, by policy, are mandated to make sure we're reviewing all of those a second and third time to make sure that this isn't something that is a pattern or that the odd man out is there. So we have a lot of checks and balances when it comes to all of this.
Yeah, the complaint was against the other officer for being slack in his duty. It wasn't against the person who actually, if I remember, Officer Ellis, the complaint was against him for not doing his job. It wasn't against the person who was really accelerating a bad situation. So to say that these red flags come up, I would disagree, since the complaint was against the other officer.
So
who was found, it was found unfounded.
Miss Sheila, so the complaint came from the assistant chief. It got brought to his attention, but there was also concerns for the other officer too. It just wasn't highlighted. It was a very short referral. But as you know, when we open up an incident, if there is any misconduct by anybody in any circumstance, that's when we deal with it. So it doesn't matter what's written in the initial complaint. We're going to find it if there is.
One of the things I want to point out, and I want you to know, is that whenever we sustain an allegation against an officer for misconduct, we try to identify a training to correct it.
Yeah.
So we think this is very important for us not to just say you were wrong, and now we're going to train you on the proper way to do it. And then if they repeat it, there's no excuse. As far as I didn't understand, I didn't know. No, we trained you to make sure. And just like we talked about the gentleman that didn't recognize that he had training for this GPA program. You know, here we have a training that's documented, and it's with our training staff, and it goes as long as the training staff thinks they need to get the message across to you. So it could be a day, it could be 2 weeks, it could be a month, until that person understands that they're remediated and we're comfortable that they can go out and operate in the fashion that we need them to do.
And I've been very diligent in terms of recommending, at least from the IA perspective, that we do follow through with the training. It has to be documented and then reported back to us that they completed it successfully from whichever division they are sent to.
Well, there's training and there's unsuitability to work with children, so I'm glad to hear that they will not be, people can be trained and not be right for a job.
I understand. Thank you for your comment. Do we move to the next case?
Well, I did want to leave time for, so it's just keeping track of time, it's 7:56, and I did want to leave time for Police Advisory Council member comment. If there happens to be one, or
I have
any.
a question.
So, yeah.
I have a question about under comment, but I don't want to keep going.
Oh, okay, yeah, so I didn't know if we wanted to try to knock out another case, or if we wanted to move to the council member comment, so that we can
I just have a couple
have a
questions.
few minutes, a couple questions about.
Yeah, I would like, Kali had asked about numbers of trespass after warning arrests, if any are homeless people, so Chief Scott says he's going to get back maybe next month.
It'll be next time. We actually came back, the second or third presentation he was going to show you today was our look at proactive versus reactive crime. And we spent a lot of time actually derivating whether it was a proactive traffic stop or if somebody called the police and we responded. So he had that data to show you tonight. And it's another bunch of presentations to it. So we didn't have time to look at the trespass, but that's on our agenda, and we'll get it to you next month.
We can prioritize that
Okay.
next time.
We
So
will.
the other one, I can send an email out to
We're
everyone.
doing member comment, right now?
Yeah,
Move
I
on
can,
from the
a
closed
couple
meeting?
of them I can ask.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that.
I'm done.
Okay.
I had a question. This was the topic of my most recent happy hour conversation with people I know, right? And they said, why is GPD not enforcing any traffic violations? And I
Yeah.
said, and I talked about staffing. I said, I know I know that they are enforcing traffic violations, but I think the question is they're not as visible as they used to be. Is it simply a matter of staffing and prioritizing some violent, people-to-people incidents kind of thing?
And we also have a significant reduction in our traffic unit.
Yeah, that's what I
So
told them. I didn't think there was a strong traffic.
We at one point had 10, I think we have 4 now. So and they were our most prolific traffic
they
enforcers
were.
within the city limits. Our officers are also doing more traffic stops and issuing warnings. We try to do a lot of educational conversation about things, and so that's another reason, but our staffing is also, and I'll let the chief.
Yeah, as far as staffing goes, it's, and I hate to say, I hate to even bring that up,
I know.
but it's a fact of life.
I get it.
I think we're up around 30, between 31 and 35 vacancies. And I could think of 3 or 4 officers right now within the next 3 months that are leaving. When we lost one to the CIA, we're losing 3 more to retirement.
Yep.
I mean, it's a constant bleed.
Sure.
Very
Or for some
difficult.
robots.
But, we do have days where we go out and we write tickets and we have, those 3 or 4 officers that are out there that are doing it. But I will admit that we are not at the level that we used to be. Now, when we do get to the point where we are out there again, I want that same type of enthusiasm that we
Nobody gets excited, although, yeah.
Was there a vehicle and pedestrian death this past weekend?
Yes, there was one on Main Street at 12th Avenue, Main Street, right there by the old Aaron's Furniture, whatever that was.
I usually get the PIO emails. Why wasn't that reported or sent
I
out?
don't think I'd heard about that.
I don't know, we don't,
No.
we'd have to check with our PIO, Clerk Graham Glover, to find out why that happened.
The death downtown the day before our previous meeting. So a homeless person on the plaza, I think,
Yes.
that passed away.
Yes.
Was it made sure that was natural causes?
I think everything I've heard from this point says it was natural.
But do they know, do they tell you a cause of death?
Say it again?
Did they tell you a cause of death?
I don't know. If it was something that was foul play, they would come and tell me.
Well, I was also wondering if it was exposure. If I recall, it wasn't icy cold the night before.
I don't know, but I mean, I can probably get that information for you. But I don't have that, I didn't bring that with me today.
Any other member comments before we adjourn the meeting? No? I don't have any myself. Okay, meeting adjourned.